Okay, welcome everybody. I am Jean Birchman, and I want to welcome you to another in our series of in our speaker series for the month of October, Spina Bifida Awareness Month. And I am here tonight with Jennifer Fitzroy, Kristin Marquis, and Sarah Haywood, just for a little bit of coffee and conversation. So we will just really be having a conversation about just real life and what it's like to live with spina bifida in this world today. So I want to start by introducing everybody. So when I introduce you, if you can raise your hand so everybody knows who you are. Jennifer Fitzroy is an adult living with spina bifida who's been involved in the SBA of Greater New England for almost 20 years. She's a competitive rower and a disabled advocate. Jennifer graduated from Boston College with a degree in developmental psychology and is passionate about mental wellness, adaptive sports, and youth leadership. Kristin Marquis is a 37-year-old adult living with spina bifida L5S1. She's a mother to her little girl, Louise, and the creator of Spina Beautiful, a platform for people with spina bifida to share their stories in an empowering way. Her goal is to help others realize that while living with spina bifida has its ups and downs, it's going to be okay, and you'll live a fulfilling life. And Sarah Haywood is a woman living with spina bifida in Portland, Maine. She has also served on a few different boards for both SPAGNI and the National Association. Sarah is an artist and also enjoys spending her time hiking, biking, and working in the craft beer industry. All three of these ladies have been or currently are board members for Spina Bifida and just have been really actively involved for quite a long time in the organization. So we're lucky to have them here. So we're going to sort of structure this. We have a series of questions that I'll just sort of start to prompt conversation, and we'll just see where it goes. They certainly all are experts on their own lives and can share with you what their experiences have been. So Jen, why don't we have you help us kick it off? How does having spina bifida affect your day-to-day life, and how does it affect the way that you see yourself?
So I just realized I live in Boston, and so we have a really nice representation of all the New England states here. I grew up in New Jersey. I walked with as a child with braces, with crutches, you know, like with a walker. And then as I transitioned to adolescence, I started using my wheelchair full time. And so being a wheelchair user is like the most visible thing about spina bifida for me. I drive a car with hand controls, and then I have to self-catheterize like most of us. Aside from that, my day-to-day life isn't too different for most young adults. I think that childhood and adolescence with spina bifida is extremely difficult. But as an adult, I've kind of, you know, like gotten into a pattern, and I'm independent, and I'm a self-advocate. And so yeah, I think it's mostly, you know, like my mobility that makes me like a little bit different.
Ladies, do you want to jump in at all?
Sure, I'll go. I agree that that childhood and adolescence was a more difficult time, just trying to figure out what I needed to do in order to take care of myself. When I was younger, I walked with braces and dealt a lot with pressure sores on my feet. That's really the source of a lot of my surgeries, was all these blisters that turned into bone infections. And being a stubborn teenager, I would notice a problem and not want to talk about it to my parents because I didn't want to miss school. I didn't want to miss out on someone's birthday party. I didn't, you know, want to miss out on anything. But growing up and kind of figuring out how to be proactive so I get to those things before they become a problem has been the biggest life lesson I could have learned. So I think that as much as I am used to living this way, I have all these daily reminders, you know, like check my feet at the end of the day, stuff like that that comes up all the time that seems so like routine and commonplace until you maybe say it to someone else, or someone else gets involved in your life and you're like, oh yeah, I do a lot of little extra things that I don't really realize anymore, but it's there, and those things are important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think if I really thought about every day, and there are little extra things. One thing that kind of makes me laugh is anytime we leave the house, my husband now knows to ask me if I went to the bathroom first. And I was telling my mom that because my mom used to do it and it would annoy me because of course I don't need to go to the bathroom, you know. I know when I need to go. And it's just become this ongoing joke that whoever lives with me has to make sure I've gone pee before I leave the house. I agree too that I think adolescence was more difficult. I think it is for a lot of people, even, you know, even if you're not disabled, it's an awkward trying to fit in kind of time, and this added a little bit to it. You know, you're in and out of school because of surgeries or whatever. But my parents always made sure that I tried, you know, to do everything I could in as normal as I could, just so I, you know, wouldn't feel too out of place. And I think that helped. And, you know, I grew into my own, and now being in my 30s, or I guess in my early 30s, I finally started to be like, I'm okay, and different is okay. So maybe it took me longer than other people, but I'm glad I'm where I'm at. So
I like struggled so much with accepting my disability when I was an adolescent. You know, as a kid, I just wanted to be like everyone else, and that was impossible. And like Sarah, I would ignore, you know, like all of, you know, like my medical problems. You know, like, oh, if I don't face it, it's just going to go away. And you know, one of the things that that helped was meeting other people with spina bifida and learning that I wasn't alone. I think that kind of helped me develop like a pride in being disabled, and like just being okay with being different. Mm-hmm. And like that shift like happened like probably when I was like 15, like 16 years old. But I think that, you know, being around other people with spina bifida, other people with disabilities, that was what really helped me like find my own identity and learn to be like proud of myself being different. And then as a result, I took better care of my body.
I think that's an excellent point. I mean, I don't have spina bifida, but I am the parent of 4 children, all of whom have already gone past middle school. And that sort of adolescent age is just painful for everybody. Nobody wants to feel different. And if you have a difference that's more visible than other people, I can imagine that is just, you know, can be excruciating on some days. But I do want to say at this point too, that's why we have our Bling and Best program that we do every year. And I really hope that the pandemic will be over by April, when we will be having our next one. But exactly to echo what Jen said, to bring kids together sort of at that really difficult age, and just have a weekend where they can interact with mentors like the 3 of you, as well as other kids their age, and develop some of that pride that you're talking about, and normalize what their experience is. That is really the point of the program. So that's something for people to keep an eye out for as their kids are aging into adolescence, and something that we feel really strongly is important for us to be able to provide. Kristin, let's start with you. But how would you say having spina bifida affects your relationships and friendships with people without spina bifida?
That's a great question. I think, again, as a younger adult, I struggled with whether I fit in here or there. I can walk. My disability doesn't hinder that. So I could hide it, and I would purposely hide it and not tell anyone for lack, because I didn't want to be different. But I was keeping a very small group of close friends who knew and are still my best friends to this day. And I think I would wait a long time to tell someone. And then once I was comfortable with them and close with them, I would kind of lay it all out there. And those people are still my best friends today. So has it affected the people I care about the most negatively? No. And if it were to, then I guess that wasn't the friendship I needed to keep.
Yeah.
So I have a kind of a funny story to share on that note. So I've been dating someone for 3 years now. 2 weeks, I think, into hanging out with him, I passed out in the middle of the night, getting up to go to the bathroom, and smashed my face off the bedpost. Ended up in the hospital the next day, having to get a spinal tap, an MRI, all these things. I was in the ER for like 16 hours, I think, or something. So that was kind of like a crash course, I guess, for him to learn about what was going on. And I was like, well, this is kind of how it goes. So,
Yeah.
like that, obviously that's an extreme example, and that's not my everyday life, but those things come up, and those, it was scary, but normal for me. And he was wonderfully supportive, and it all worked out and everything was good. But, that could have been like a big moment for someone. Like my first boyfriend in high school when I was like 14 years old was afraid of hospitals. And I was like, well, probably not going to work out.
Yeah. It has been a deal breaker in the past for a date. If you're talking more of a dating relationship, that's sort of a whole different story. But I'm married now and happy. And I have a similar story. One of our very first dates, we were hiking, and I had my catheter in my sports bra because I tried it. People, and it fell out, and I had to go to the bathroom, and I was missing my catheter, and that's when I was like, "We gotta get down this mountain now." And he was like, "What are we looking for? A tiny tube?" I'm like, "Oh, sorry." Yeah. I'm sure we all can come up with funny stories like that someday, anyways.
That's how you know they're keepers.
Yes. A mountain for a catheter. Not fun.
Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about how you have worked or struggled to fit in the Spina Bifida community, and how also you've worked to fit into the normal able-bodied community, and what is it like kind of going back and forth?
Yeah, I think this is a really important topic to me. As someone, I now walk without braces, but sometimes I'll be in a wheelchair because I've had a surgery or something like that. But being someone who walks, who doesn't have like a lot of visible signs of having spina bifida, I get a lot of that, wow, you look so normal. And I don't think people realize that that's probably like not a cool thing to say to you. But it's an interesting position to kind of be, somewhere in the middle. And I think that within a lot of different like disabled communities, there's almost some resentment with people sometimes, depending on which direction you're going in. And especially with spina bifida, like we are all so different. We could, we have such a wide range of issues that go along with this. And I think sometimes people kind of forget that, and just because you can't like see something doesn't mean that it's not there and that it's not valid. So I think sometimes I'll struggle to fit in on both sides, because people see me and they'll be like, oh yeah, let's go for a run. And I'm just like, well, I can't, because XYZ. And on the other hand, you know, I've had people actually say like, well, you're not disabled enough, which I think is just not, that just shouldn't be a thing at all. You know, we're all dealing with so many things, and just because it's not outwardly there doesn't mean that it's not actually there.
That's a great point. And just as an aside, we do have on our website a badge that people can print that says on it, not all disabilities are visible. And so it fits into like a standard lanyard. So we do have that on our website. That's available. It's free if people want to print that out and bring that with them. I know sometimes, particularly on public transportation, there can be an issue. This, you know, related to what you're talking about, Sarah. I'm just sitting here listening to you thinking, what actually is normal? Does anybody actually know what that really means? I mean, no.
I think nobody is normal. So
Yeah, I think if we could all stop applying our own personal opinion of what normal is to other people and just take them as they are, this would, the whole world would go a lot more smoothly. So, Jen, can you talk a little bit about what language you prefer when describing your identity as somebody with spina bifida, and why you feel the way that you do about different words?
So I generally refer to myself as disabled. You know, there's the social model of disability that, you know, like that proposes that the disability isn't with the person themselves, but rather it's in the environment. So I might not be disabled if I were in a completely accessible environment, and, you know, there were equal opportunities for people of all abilities. And then there's, you know, like the medical model of disability that places the focus on the defect of the person, so the spina bifida and all of the medical conditions that go along with it. So I'm very much, you know, like involved with the disability rights community, and I'm focused on, you know, like making a better world for people with all, you know, like disabilities, so there's equal access. And so I usually refer to myself as disabled because I think that, you know, like if society were different, you know, like my life would be different, and there would be, you know, like there would be access. In my writing, you know, like I'll often, you know, like alternate between the two. I'll say disabled and person with disability. Person first language is really has been like really popular in the past, you know, like decade or so. And it, you know, like says, oh, you know, like it's the person is the most important focus. But I don't see my disability as being like a bad thing. And I don't use person first language if I am talking about my gender or my race. I say that I'm a woman. I say that I'm Black. And so I don't feel like there's anything wrong with disability. And so we don't have to, you know, like put it second. I say that I'm disabled. But, you know, different people are at different places in their journey with their acceptance of their disability and you know, like their experience in society. And so I don't like to tell people, you know, like what language I like to use, but that's the language that I generally prefer.
Well said, Jen.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, in my observation, that's really true across the disability community. I know there's a debate within the autistic community, difference of opinion about person with autism versus autistic, and who prefers what. And so I think what's really interesting, and maybe if you guys can share a little bit about when you have your own preferences, are there times where you've had to kind of stop a conversation and ask somebody to change their terminology because it's really troubling you, and sort of how do you handle that?
I had an experience kind of recently. It wasn't necessarily like a word. I don't know. I guess it wasn't like a word or a term that I was upset by, but it was someone relatively new to my life that I don't know super well, and I was saying something about being part of like these talks, and she kind of said like, oh, what's spina bifida? And I described it to her very briefly, and she just looked at me and she said, ew. And I stopped short and I was like, wait, what? did you just say ew? Something about the thought of the spinal cord being in this sac on the outside of the body grossed her out. But I had to be like, that's not an appropriate way to react to someone telling you something so incredibly personal. So she didn't say like, call me a word I didn't like, but she just had this outward reaction that was so inappropriate that I would never react that way to someone.
Yeah. Wow. That's remarkable.
I know that when I hear like confined to a wheelchair or wheelchair bound, I will kind of like gently correct people and say, well, actually, like my wheelchair, like helps me to be more independent. My wheelchair definitely doesn't limit me. And I mean, like a lot of people with spina bifida and different disabilities, like sometimes I'll walk, sometimes I'll use my crutches, sometimes I'm in my wheelchair. I think that it's important to normalize like different modes of getting around, and to not think that, like we always, like are in a wheelchair, or that, like we always have to walk, and that things change and circumstances change. I mean, I was using my crutches like this summer on the beach, and climbing up like rocks to like get down to a swimming hole in Vermont. So yeah, I think that like different ways of getting around is really helpful, and yeah, that we can go between all of them, instead of like sticking that label like on a person.
I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, Jen. I want to ask you about your rowing. You really are becoming a very competitive athlete. And we've shown a couple of movies recently. We had that watch party for Rising Phoenix, which if anybody missed it, I really encourage them to watch, about the Paralympics. And it was fascinating. And you're really entering that world. I know your training has been disrupted because of COVID, which has ruined everything. But if you could talk a little bit about that. And, I think one of the things that they focused on a lot in that movie is that para doesn't mean paralyzed, it means parallel. And I thought that was a really important distinction that is probably lost on most people. So maybe you can just talk a little bit about your experience in the athletic arena.
Sure. Thanks to some like different, like nonprofits like Northeast Passage and New England Disabled Sports, I've been able to participate in things like cycling and water skiing and downhill skiing. And those were activities that I started doing when I moved to Boston to go to college as a young adult. I wish I'd been able to participate in things like that when I was younger. But yeah, I got involved in those things as a young adult, and then a few years ago, I was struggling with some mental health things, and my therapist like told me to find like a hobby, something that like I could enjoy, and so I started rowing at community rowing here in Brighton. And I think about like 9 months later, I was invited to the like more competitive group. So I train with like members of the national team now. And it's just been a really like wonderful experience to train at that level, to work hard and to see improvement, and to just feel proud at the end of the day. The physical activity helps like so much with my physical health and with my mental health. It's given me community. It's made me a lot more confident in my abilities, and so I think that, you know, physical activity with a group, you know, like of any kind, is just like so important for our community. It helps on so many levels, you know, like whether it's whether it's training, you know, like with a competitive group, or if it's just, you know, like a fitness class that you know, you do a couple of times a week.
Thank you. That's awesome. And I'm sorry about putting you on the spot, but I'm just, you know, you are so remarkable in your rowing. It's really been fun to watch you. And here I will put in another shameless plug for a SPAGNI program, which is that we do have empowerment grants available for everybody in our community at once, up to $250 a year. And we really especially love to see it when people use it to try a new activity, physical fitness, an artistic activity, something that's good for your body, good for your soul. That's what those funds are for. The application is on our website. We love to give away money for those reasons. So I really encourage everybody to find, and I know Sarah and Kristin, you also have areas of passion that mean a lot to you, and we really love to support that. So, speaking of a passion project.
Say hi.
Hello. So sweet. Hi, Louise.
You gonna chat with us? Okay.
Just a lot of waving. Kristin, how do you describe your spina bifida to others, and what is the usual reaction that you get?
It really depends on who I'm talking to. I feel like if I'm talking to someone that I feel like might already know a little bit or have some medical background, I might just come out and say, you know, I have spina bifida, and they'll be like, really? And you could see they're shocked because I walk, or they couldn't tell. If it's someone that I think probably has no idea what it is, I will say that I have a disability that when I was born, my spine never fully developed, and it mostly affects my bladder and bowel. And then I leave it at that. And they might ask more, but most part they're just like, huh, okay. When I met my husband, you know, that was trickier conversation because I was very nervous that maybe I wasn't sure that I could have children, and I knew that at the time that he definitely wanted to have kids, and I was very nervous about that aspect of it. And so that was a more involved conversation. I can't say that I've ever had anyone you know, be negative towards me about you know, just a quick breakdown of what it is. I'm not sure I've ever had a bad experience, thankfully.
Sarah or Jen, did you want to add anything in, or Louise?
Yeah, I think that I describe it in a very similar way to how Kristin just said. But over the years, I've become, you know, way more open about it, and you know, I kind of liked talking about it. You know, it's a chance to educate people and to teach people something they don't know, but it's pretty prevalent. I think it's important to use those opportunities to teach people.
Mm-hmm. I talk a lot about it on all my social media platforms, especially the blog Spina Beautiful, and I think that everyone that knows me now knows, and it's just out there So people don't even ask. They'll just, a lot of people are educated through that blog, and, or in my life are educated through that blog. And I feel like everyone knows me more than they ever have before. And I'm really proud of finally being comfortable of sharing my story. And it's almost been a very freeing experience. I wish I had done it much, much sooner, truthfully.
Do you want to agree with that? Do you want to say your blog again too, so people can find you?
Yeah, it's spina-beautiful.com. I share a bunch of stories from people all over the world living with spina bifida of all different ages. And it's just an effort to help maybe someone newly diagnosed feel like it's going to be okay, you know, whether you're a parent of someone with spina bifida or people do get diagnosed later in life. And I just hope that it makes it less scary, because I know how scary it is to hear that your baby has a birth defect. And if you go to Google it, it's not going to give you some nice things. And that's unfortunate. And so I'm hoping that Spina Beautiful helps out in that way. Gives a community to people when they need it most, because that's what's been most helpful to me, finding people like me.
That's awesome. Sarah, what would you most want the general public to know about spina bifida?
I think it's just important that people know how broad the spectrum is for spina bifida, and to not be quick to judge. You know, I think a great example of this is there's been at least 2 times, maybe 3 times, where I'll pull up and park in a handicapped spot, put my placard up and get out of the car, and have someone in the parking lot start yelling at me saying, "You're not disabled." And I think that's just, that kind of stuff is so harmful. You know, who are you to speak to me that way? Like, we can't know what other people are dealing with, and that's true across everything. So I think, you know, I want people to ask questions, and I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I think that is such a huge thing, where you tell people and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. And I don't feel sorry for myself. So I don't want people to feel sorry for me either. You know, I'm making it work. I'm proud of it. I'm doing all these different things that I was always told not to do my whole life. You know, I was told I'd never live on my own. I was told I'd never walk on my own. I even had someone, when I said I wanted to go to college, she was like, "You should probably aim lower. It's not going to work out." And, you know, just the negativity is not, it's not helpful to anybody.
I haven't known you for a long time, but you seem like the exactly wrong kind of person to say that to.
Don't say that to me. I'll just do it way more, you know. Exactly. Tell me I can't do something.
Exactly. That's what I would expect. Absolutely.
I think it goes back to what Jen said earlier about how, you know, we might be different, but everyone has their differences. Nobody's perfect. And the world just needs to be set up better for all abilities. That's really the big problem here. And it's our, you know, we have to educate people in these things to help for the future.
You're absolutely right about that. And this is sort of off script, but all 3 of you have been great advocates over the years in terms of spina bifida and disability rights. And that is definitely an area of growth for us here at SPAGNY, something that we would like to focus on more, and certainly welcome people's participation. We were really, really thrilled in Massachusetts this year to get a proclamation from Governor Baker designating October as Spina Bifida Awareness Month in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And it's a goal of ours to extend that to our other New England states next year and every year, because you know, just the visibility and the support and the representation matters. And I just want to commend all three of you really for being out in front and with the representation and visibility. I think that it's just so important across the community, the whole disability community, not just the spina bifida community. So moving along, I think Jen is up next, talking about how do you feel about assistance, about people asking you if you need help, or how you go about asking for help?
So I always appreciate people asking me if I want help before delivering it. A lot of wheelchair users will say that they've had the experience of someone come up, you know, like behind them and push them without asking, you know, like invading, you know, like your personal space. And it's, it can be like very alarming, it can be scary. So yeah, I'll always ask someone, you know, before helping them. And, you know, I'm encouraged by strangers asking me if I need help, because, you know, like it means that, you know, like people in the world are good, you know, like they want to, you know, like they want to help other people. And at the same time, it can also be stressful to be offered help with like so many things, you know, like throughout the day, things that, you know, like I've been able to do, you know, like on my own for a long time. But I try to be patient and to, you know, like reassure someone that no, like it's okay. I can put, you know, like my wheelchair in my car on my own, and things like that. Yeah, as someone with a visible disability, the offers for help can be numerous, and they can be frustrating. Something that I always like to mention, people tend to hold the door open for me a lot. And, you know, as a, you know, like 9-year-old, you know, like when I first started using like my wheelchair, my physical therapist taught me how to open doors on my own. So I don't really need the assistance, but people will hold the door open for me, like while standing in my way so that I can't get through the door. And it's just such a common, you know, like occurrence. And I try to gently, you know, like draw the person's attention to it. Like, hey, you know, like, I know you're trying to help, but I can't get through, you're in my way. And there's still like so many things that, I have a routine for, and, you know, like that I can do like on my own, you know, like faster and easier than it would be to accept help. And so that's why I sometimes, you know, like refuse help. But I have, you know, like amazing friends who, you know, like will, you know, help me to be able to, you know, like to experience, you know, like hikes and to and go to the beach and things that, you know, like might not be, you know, like accessible to me. Like my friends, sometimes I feel, you know, like, sometimes I feel, you know, like a burden, because, you know, like I have really great friends who give me, you know, like so much help, and I have to, you know, like fight those feelings, and, you know, like to remind myself that, you know, like I'm a really good friend, and I, you know, like help them, and I give them, you know, like a lot as well. And I mean, my friends just want me to be included and to have, you know, like a normal experience. And so sometimes if it you know, like does, you know, like require them giving me some extra help and me accepting, you know, like the help, that's what, you know, like has to happen, and I'm grateful for it. And it really helps me like see the good in people.
Awesome. This was the last question that we all brainstormed, so I'm just going to throw it out to all of you. How can we better educate the public about interacting with people with disabilities without making people afraid of saying or doing the wrong thing?
I think that giving people the tools to do this is really important. I think this is the kind of stuff that should really be taught in schools at a young age, you know, different forms of acceptance, and telling kids, like, you know, if you see someone who looks a little different, like, how do you react to that? And I don't think very many kids have been taught that. You know, I know when I was a kid, I had a girl walk up to me and say, "Why do you walk so funny?" And that has stuck with me forever. You know, I was probably 8 years old and I can remember everything about that moment. But if, you know, a teacher or someone had given her the tools to be like, "Hey, I wanted to ask you a question," you know, like, there's a better way of wording things. And I think it's great. Like, kids are curious, they want to know, but it's up to us as mentors and educators to give them the tools to be successful in asking those questions.
I always used to say to my kids, there are a lot of different ways of saying the same thing. So you can get the information you're looking for without hurting somebody's feelings, or, you know, just being a little bit more respectful. I think that's a great suggestion about better education, especially in early elementary school, where kids are have less of a filter, kind of less developmentally able to think about the other person's experience of what is happening at the particular moment. I think that's a great suggestion.
I think that it does start early. I think people, or for example, parents really need to get in front of their children about all different abilities. I know when it's not happening directly to you, it might not be something you think about, but it's happening to a lot of people that don't look disabled, even still might be going through something. And teaching your children to be sensitive to those types of things, it has to start really early. And as educators, we just have to share our stories over and over, because the most powerful thing is your story, and it helps other people share theirs.
I think it's interesting starting to see more and more in the media, and hopefully on TV as well, but certainly in advertising media, people with disabilities. And curious if you've been noticing that sort of a difference between when you were growing up versus now, and you feel like that just sort of makes it less, just more commonplace or part of everybody's everyday life, to see representation like that.
I always ask people to imagine growing up never seeing anyone like themselves on TV or anywhere, ever. Imagine that.
Yeah.
That would be horrible. I mean, how more different could you feel?
Right.
Now, at least we're seeing a little bit more, and those children with, you know, different abilities and are going to feel a little more represented. And I hope it goes on, and I hope there's more of that, because I think they have to, like Sarah said, that's probably the first time you even thought anyone noticed that you walked different. And it sticks with you. You're like, oh my gosh, I am different. Oh no. She looked at me like this when she said it. That's bad. You know, like,
Yeah.
And she was only saying that because she's never, you know, people like that weren't represented ever. And I do see a little bit here and there, and it makes me very happy. And those are the places that I want to shop.
Kristin, as the mom of a young little girl, are you finding that there are more stories that are better representative of, you know, people with disabilities, people of color, all of the non-white stereotypical people that were in my children's storybooks when they were growing up?
Yes. I think the disabled community could do a lot better with that, unfortunately, but there are some that I've found. For some reason, they're harder to find. I wish they were just right there when you walk in the store, or but race and other things have definitely come a long way as being representative we've made it a priority too. So and that's what you have to do.
Maybe that's something that we could do. We could add a section to our website of, you know, of books that we've come across or movies or shows or something that just if people are looking for that, just as we find them, and we could ask other people to contribute as well. We won't encounter every children's book in the world, but maybe that we could have that in part of a resource section. We're going to be revamping. Kristin and I are working on revamping our website, and if COVID-19 hadn't happened, it would already be done. It'd be great. Right. But yeah, I'm just thinking as you're talking, maybe that's something valuable that we could.
That would be huge. Yeah, I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Maybe we should write a children's book all together.
I think about it every second of every day. Only I don't know how to do that. You can illustrate and write it. I'll just give you some ideas.
I think we have a beautiful collaboration building, right?
Yeah. Jen's really good with words, I feel like, too.
She is.
We have to get her on.
All right, I think we need a little retreat with the three of you.
Yeah.
Some good snacks, and you know, you can just bang it right out. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be great. Is there other stuff that's sort of on your mind or has come up in the course of conversation that you want to talk about? Or do you have sort of a parting, this is going to really put pressure on you, a parting word of wisdom that you'd like to share with our community?
I think something that has been coming up a lot more in the media, which I think is really important, is like glorifying people's accomplishments in a way that affects them negatively. I know I have seen a ton of stuff in the past year or so about this happening. And I think, you know, again, it's another thing where we need to educate the public a little bit more to make sure it's happening less, you know, like we don't need to be told, wow, I can't believe you did that thing and you have spina bifida and you took a shower by yourself. You're so inspiring, you know, like glorifying these everyday things can be really harmful and people don't realize it. I mean, even this came up recently, someone who doesn't really know you at all, but will send you like an inspirational spina bifida article on Facebook or something, even though you met them once. I think people just need to be more conscious of how the other person feels when those things are brought up.
I think that kind of goes back to what you were saying before about not feeling like you want people's pity. And, you know, why shouldn't we have the same expectation of you washing and dressing yourself that we have of everybody else? It's not necessarily a daily triumph. So
there's a healthy way, I think, to you know, say that like people's accomplishments are great.
Yeah.
But it's a difficult subject.
Well, thank you guys. This has been, did I just cut you off, Kristin? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to agree with her. And I think that people need to realize that while we're different, we are really good, very resilient and really good at adapting. And we're not asking for anything other than maybe just to be invited, included. But I don't want people to view my disability as me being broken or any, you know, that I'm less than. I am completely capable of doing everything I want to do. And if I need to adapt, I will. And I don't need anyone else to worry about that. So why treat me any differently?
Well said.
And I'm done.
All right, well, ladies, it's been lovely to have coffee with you. I really can't thank you enough. This has been such a really enjoyable and really just candid, vulnerable, real conversation, which I think is great. I appreciate your willingness to take part in it. I know that everybody will enjoy watching this, and it will be on our YouTube channel, so people can watch it as often as they like, but we will share the link in the next week or so that everybody can hear what you all had to say. So thank you sincerely. This has been great. Thank you, and a little cheers to all of you.
Cheers.
And thank you. We wouldn't be able to do this without all of your hard work and you facilitating these kinds of things. So
Oh, well, you're sweet. I think we should do a lot more of this. This is what this community is here for.
Yeah, thank you, Jean, for doing everything that you do. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
we're lucky. We're very lucky to have you.
Yes, very lucky.
Maybe we should keep talking. I like it.
Just say nice things to each other for the next hour.
Wow, what would that world be like?
I love this.
Yeah. That would be quite a difference from where our culture is right now, for sure.
I know.
Yeah.
I think this is what people need. I think this is going to help a lot of people right now, especially.
Well,
I feel a lot better than I did when we started.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Well, that is the goal. Absolutely, that is the goal. So maybe, I don't know, there's a danger that this will have to become a regular series. You'll have to squeeze it in with writing your children's books. So
We've already,
you guys might get a lot busier in the near term. So thank you so much. I'm going to turn this off.